It has never been more clear as multiple new reports have dropped surrounding the future of one particular Leaf that not only has fans fired up, but this report changes the outlook of this offseason going forward as Brad Living continues to prepare for his next move. We're to break down these reports and discuss some other interesting Leafs updates as well. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. About 70% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. You guys have been absolute beasts with the support. So thank you guys for that. Darius, a lot to go over today. And obviously, interesting part of the offseason now. We're still waiting for Brad Living to make his next move, but a new report has dropped revealing some interesting information surrounding what that next move will be, and it's something that has is very intriguing to say the least. And let's dive right into it here now. A new report has dropped from David Pagnotta surrounding the Leafs' next move, and just not just the Leafs, but of course an NHL trade, I guess, watch if you want to call it. But the list from what he's hearing regarding players who are most likely to get traded, and Darius, it's became pretty clear who the Leafs are looking to move off of, and let's dive right into it here. Number 8 on the whole big board is Calle Jarnkrok, and it's never been more clear that the Leafs are going to move off of a couple of these players. But let's start with Jarnkrok. As the Leafs try to shed salary to create roster space, Jarnkrok joins Kampf and Robertson, also on this list, we'll dive into later. $2.1 million cap hit and owns a 10-team no-trade list, which is ludicrous. The market hasn't been vibrant to this point, but the Leafs will continue to dangle him. So report dropped. Not only are they dangling him, they are actively trying to move him, though the market at this juncture isn't super strong for him. I do ultimately think a deal will get done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's no surprise that Calle Jarnkrok and David Kampf are on this list. But I think it came as a surprise when you look at the rankings on this list that Calle Jarnkrok is as high as he is league-wide, number 8. And the reason I think that is the case is because Calle Jarnkrok, I think, is a hotter commodity than David Kampf around the league. This is a guy that we've seen in the past has played with Austin Matthews, played on top line minutes when called upon, and hasn't really looked at a place. Actually put together some decent seasons the last couple of years. Again, I don't think he fits with this team anymore. All of that to say this, I guess, like he doesn't fit with this team and where they're going anymore. So you have to move off him to free up the salary cap space. But in a vacuum, if you look at it league wide, this is a guy that can play in your middle six and only makes $2 million or just north of $2 million. So makes a lot of sense out there. But I do find it interesting that if you go through the entire article, there's a lot of players that are linked to specific teams, whether it's, because of insiders saying that or the fact that they might just fit with that team structure. But right now, there is nobody, and I'm not saying that there's nobody interested, but there's nobody listed for Jarnkrok right now. So it seems like the Leafs are just kind of dangling him out there. And again, there's a lot of dominoes that need to fall around the league, whether it be RFAs or, a guy like Jack Roslovic at this point. There's a couple moves that I think need to be made for the Leafs to start pulling the trigger on these because a lot of teams are still waiting on guys to sign and their decisions on what's going to happen with specific RFAs. So could be interesting. I think he's actually a very attractive option to a lot of teams because 1 year left on his deal. He only makes 2.1, right? There's a lot of teams around the league that do have cap space. Like I'm looking at Carolina, they have a lot of cap space if they just wanted to add a guy like this. Again, they could re-sign Roslovic if they want to. So that's going to be very interesting. But I think Calle Jarnkrok, league wide at least, is a hot commodity. Could actually garner some interest. I'm not saying he's going to get a first round pick or anything like that, but I think that he's going to be the one to go first. And I do wonder how much they are dangling him out there. And again, on David Kampf, who we'll get to in a second, these are two guys that I think when you look up and down the lineup, which we will later in this video, they don't fit with this team anymore. They do not fit with where they're going, and they have guys who can play the roles that they were, and I would argue maybe better, and they're just bigger and more physical.
And obviously for Jarnkrok, $2.1 million cap. It is entering his age 34 season last year of his contract. He doesn't really fit the Leaf structure anymore. They have so many bottom six guys. That's obviously what makes him available. And yeah, no teams are mentioned here. We've heard there's been some rumblings, I guess, in different articles about teams like the Capitals and teams, I think the Predators as well, just teams who could use some depth regarding their bottom six. So keep an eye out for that. But also David Kampf has been thrown out there. And this one makes obviously a lot of sense. 2 years remaining on Kampf's contract, and he's been made available. And the Leafs look to create some extra cap space and roster space. He has 2 years left on his contract and owns also a 10-team no-trade list. So the 10-team no-trade list is absurd. I mean, both of these guys have it, and that's probably why and part of the reason there's no teams reportedly linked. Same thing, I assume similar teams, Capitals maybe. It's interesting with Kampf because you look at his salary, and he makes a little bit more, but the salary wouldn't matter in a 1 year structure because of this, salary cap rising, and it matters less in general because of the cap rising. But he has another year on his deal after this, though he is younger. He has a more concrete role, I guess. He's more of a penalty killer, defensive minded. Whether he can play center and he can play wing. But
Yep.
for him, he has another year on his deal, and that's what makes it hard to move and difficult to move. And for the Leafs, I'm sure they'd want to move off of both of these players strictly because of their cap space, and then they're still trying to, in theory, and according to reports, move into the top or get a new player rather in the top 6 for this team. And in order to do so, you would assume, bearing a blockbuster trade, you would have to move off of both of these guys to open up the cap space to do so.
Yeah, you have to do that. And think about if you do move off of even one of these guys. Look at the cap space that they have right now. You're freeing up almost $6 million. And then if you free up, or if you trade both of them away, and obviously not bring back any salary because you don't want any salary coming back the other way. So these trades are going to be a little weird. But if you do that, you have a ton of cap space to work with. And there's your top 6 forward right there via trade. You can then, get somebody via trade that makes significant money and probably still have, a little bit of flexibility. I think they're probably targeting somebody who's making like $6 or $7 million right now, if that was my guess, to play in the top 6, somebody in that range. So it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. But I do want to piggyback off of something you said. This is a guy that has 2 years left on this deal that at the time I thought made some sense. A lot of people, again, hindsight 2020, are dumping on Brad Treliving for this one. The 10-team no trade list is absurd for a guy like David Kampf. That makes no sense. But at the time, hindsight is 2020. I thought it made some sense, but right now, where the team is and where we know that they're going, you have to free up $2.4 million in David Kampf. He is one-dimensional, and it's the penalty kill, which they have a lot of guys that can do that now as well. Steven Lorentz, you have Scott Lawton, just two as an example, and you have a bunch of other guys. Austin Matthews is playing on the penalty kill now too, right? So you have guys that can do that. So he is expendable. You can't trade him, and it's just the penalty kill, the defense. He'll surprise you like twice a year with a goal or something like that, but he is one-dimensional in that way that he didn't even play in the playoffs. A lot of people tend to forget. I think he played only one playoff game, and it was that horrendous Game 5 against the Florida Panthers. So he doesn't fit anymore. He didn't even play in the playoffs for this team, and he's taking up $2.4 million. So they're going to move off of, I would suspect, at least one of these guys. And if they don't move off both of them, it's because nobody wants one of them for whatever reason. But I think they're trying to move off both of them. But I think the only thing that's holding this up heading into August is a lot of the players that filed for arbitration. So what's happening with some of the RFAs, a guy like Jack Roslovic, for example. Once that settles down, which I would suspect would happen in the next week or two at this point, I feel like we're going to see a trade. We're going to see the Maple Leafs trade both of these guys. And then subsequently after that, a couple of days after that, we'll see that trade for the top 6 forward, because it's no surprise. This team needs one more guy in the top 6. And once they do that, it's looking like a pretty good roster here.
And obviously, Jarnkrok played a bunch in the playoffs with the lines here. I wouldn't be surprised if they hold on to Jarnkrok. I don't think they're going to, but if they do end up holding on to him, he'll probably factor into the opening night lineup, depending on how they rock things. I think they have a lot of faith in him as a player, but I think a lot of fans here want both of them gone because of the fact that it opens up then a total of $7 million. Yes, $7 million to move on. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on that. A lot of new reports are dropping. We'll keep you up to date every step of the way. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.